For ages, space has been seen as one of the most inaccessible and hostile environments for humans, a place where cold infinity keeps its silence. We are used to perceiving it as a boundless ocean of stars and galaxies, full of mysterious phenomena that science has been trying to unravel for centuries. However, the deeper humanity dives into the study of this abyss, the more uncomfortable questions arise, answers to which could shake the very foundations of our worldview. Among the multitude of theories and guesses, there is one truly shocking hypothesis. Does space actually exist in the way we have been taught since childhood? A bold and terrifying thought suggests that all the magnificence we observe is not endless space, but a grand, masterfully executed stage set. Perhaps the starry sky is merely a beautiful decoration, hiding the true structure of our world. This skepticism is fueled not only by conspiracy theories, but also by official scientific data, which, upon closer inspection, looks like a sentence for our ambitions. Astrophysicists calculated long ago that humanity will likely never be able to leave our solar system. The reason for this is the colossal, mind-boggling distances that are impossible to overcome, even if we were to reach the speed of light. This creates a paradoxical situation. We live in a world whose borders are insurmountable for us. It is as if we are locked in an invisible cage, and all that remains for us is to observe distant lights that we can never reach. If these barriers truly exist, a logical question arises: is what lies beyond them real? Or is the impossibility of leaving our system part of a mechanism designed to keep us in ignorance? After all, if space is truly so huge and filled with billions of planets, why is it so empty and silent? Why have we not met anyone yet? Or perhaps we are simply not allowed to see those who are on the other side of the screen. We look up with such fascination, trying to solve the mysteries of flares on Mars or the merging of galaxies, that we forget how little we have studied our own Earth. But the universe itself is in no hurry to reveal its cards, and scientists continue to rack their brains over the origin of planets and stars. However, to attempt to understand the nature of this puzzle, it is worth distracting ourselves for a moment from modern textbooks and turning to the wisdom and observations of those who lived long before the space age. Our ancestors looked at the same sky, but they saw a completely different picture there. One which might give us the key to understanding where we truly are. Interest in the true structure of the universe permeates the entire history of humanity. And if we turn to the heritage of past eras, we can find amazing evidence that differs radically from modern concepts. In ancient books and medieval manuscripts, one often finds images demonstrating a completely different understanding of the universe's structure. One of the most mysterious and illustrative examples of this is a famous engraving, first published in the late 19th century, but based on its subject matter, seemingly rooting back to much older traditions. It depicts a wanderer, perhaps a monk or a seeker of truth, who has reached the very edge of the earth, the place where the dome of the sky meets the solid ground. This traveler, driven by a thirst for knowledge, literally breaks through the fabric of the sky we are used to, in order to see what is hidden behind the curtains of our world. And what is revealed to his gaze is astounding. Instead of an infinite black void or a chaotic pile of cosmic bodies, he sees a complex mechanism. Behind the blue screen of the atmosphere and the scattering of stars, an ordered system is revealed. Giant wheels resembling clockwork gears, layers of clouds, and strange fires. This image vividly illustrates the theory that the cosmos we observe at night may not be what it seems, but rather a kind of dome or artificial shell. According to this concept, the universe is arranged hierarchically, like a layer cake, where ice is located at the lower levels, atmospheric phenomena in the middle, and those very gears and luminaries that drive celestial mechanics are at the top. This picture of the world suggests that the starry sky we see is just a giant canvas thrown over our world, much like a thick cloth with patterns is thrown over a parrot's cage to calm the bird and make it sleep. We, being inside, see only the inner side of this cover, admiring its beauty and mystery, but having no opportunity to realize its true nature. If we assume that this theory has grounds, then all of modern astronomy appears in a completely different light. Scientists pointing their telescopes upward may, in essence, not be studying the bottomless depths of space, but merely examining the threads on this giant carpet in detail. They classify patterns, calculate the brightness of glowing dots, and build complex models of the movement of painted objects, not even suspecting that they are studying a flat surface rather than a volume. Astrophysicists can stare into the texture of the dome for years, mistaking it for distant galaxies, while reality lies literally behind a thin partition separating us from the true mechanism of the universe. Of course, for a modern person raised on scientific achievements and images from orbital telescopes, such ideas sound like naive fantasy. We are used to trusting official data and complex formulas. However, even in the foundation of modern cosmology, there are cracks that make one think. The generally accepted picture of the world, based on strict physical laws, turns out to be not so flawless upon closer inspection. The irony is that even the dominant scientific theory of the origin of the universe contains contradictions within itself which, strangely enough, play into the hands of skeptics and supporters of alternative views. To sort this out, it is necessary to look at how exactly science explains the emergence of everything that exists, and find those very inconsistencies that are so diligently smoothed over in textbooks. Official science offers us a comprehensive explanation for the origin of everything, and the most famous concept we hear from literally everywhere is the Big Bang Theory. Proposed early in the last century, it became the foundation of modern cosmology. We are told that the universe emerged from a point of infinite density and began to expand rapidly. However, even in this seemingly elegant theory, there are vulnerable spots that force us to think about the nature of reality. Logic suggests that any explosion is, first and foremost, chaos. The expansion of matter after such a colossal release of energy should be accompanied by a disorderly, chaotic distribution of substance. But one only has to look up at the sky to see a completely different picture. Our universe, and the observed cosmos in particular, represents a model of perfect order. It is a strictly structured system where planets, star clusters, and matter move along precise trajectories, like parts of a giant clock mechanism. It is hard to believe that such an ordered combination of celestial bodies could have formed by itself as a result of a random explosion. This strange orderliness suggests that either we misunderstand the physics of the process, or the structure of space itself was organized by someone or something, and not born in chaos. Even more questions arise when we start analyzing the visual paradoxes of the night sky. Think about it. Why do objects located at fundamentally different distances look practically the same to the human eye? Take, for example, Jupiter, a planet in our system, and Sirius, a star removed from us by a colossal distance. According to official data, Sirius is more than 8.5 light-years away. 1 light-year is trillions of kilometers, a distance the human brain is not even capable of adequately visualizing. And yet, in the firmament, both the nearby Jupiter and the distant Sirius look like glowing dots of comparable size. We are told that Sirius shines dozens of times stronger than our Sun, and it is this monstrous brightness that allows us to see it through the abyss of space. But even if we accept this statement as truth, the laws of optics and perspective have not been repealed. Imagine a simple experiment with scaling. If you look down from the top floor of an ordinary skyscraper, people turn into dots, and cars into tiny bugs. This happens at a height of just 100 meters. Now try to extrapolate this effect over billions of kilometers. At such a distance, any object, no matter how bright, should shrink to a size invisible to the eye, becoming smaller than a microbe. We don't see bacteria without a microscope, so why do we see stars separated from us by an insurmountable void so clearly? This simple logical dead end leads to a disappointing conclusion. Perhaps our knowledge of cosmic scales and distances is erroneous or intentionally distorted. It seems that humanity knows criminally little about space, operating with numbers that are impossible to verify. One gets the impression that glowing objects are much closer than is generally believed, and the depth of space is just another illusion. But if modern textbooks do not provide answers, this does not mean that knowledge is irretrievably lost. It is quite likely that ancient wisdom about the structure of the world was securely hidden in plain sight, encrypted in texts that we are used to considering simple nursery rhymes. From childhood, we are used to perceiving fairy tales as simple, instructive stories invented to entertain a child or teach a basic moral lesson. However, many of these familiar narratives are actually echoes of deep ancient knowledge that our ancestors tried to preserve and pass down through generations in an encrypted form. A striking example of such an information container is a famous Slavic folktale known as Kolobok. To a Western audience, this character might look like the gingerbread man, a round, living loaf of bread that runs away from his grandparents. At first glance, it is a simple story about a baked good on the run, but if we cast aside the modern interpretation and turn to etymology and astronomy, a real star map opens up before us. The word Kolobok itself carries a sacred meaning. The root kolo in the ancient Slavic language meant a circle, a wheel, or the sun. Combined, this image symbolizes not just a pastry, but a celestial body, specifically the moon, going through its cycles. The plot of the fairy tale is not a forest adventure, but a figurative description of an astronomical observation of the moon's movement across the sky. The Kolobok, representing the full moon, rolls along its trajectory, passing through various constellations, which our ancestors called halls. The meetings with animals are an allegory for the moon entering a specific celestial house. In the original versions of the tale, which were not subjected to later censorship, the set of animals differed from what is common today. They included a boar, a raven, a bear, and a fox. The meaning of these encounters was to demonstrate the waning of the moon. Each beast bit off a piece of the round loaf. The boar bit off a piece of the side, the raven pecked it, the bear pressed it down. This figuratively described the gradual reduction of the lunar disk from the full moon to the last quarter. The finale of the story, where the fox eats the Kolobok entirely, symbolizes the arrival of the new moon. The moment when the moon completely disappears from the night sky, hiding in the darkness, only to be born again later. Thus, with the help of this children's story, adults taught the younger generation the basics of astronomy and orientation by the starry sky. Children were shown how the celestial luminary rolls through the constellations, and the phases of its change were explained visually. It was a convenient, clear, and memorable form of transmitting complex information. Realizing this fact forces us to look anew at what we consider folklore. It turns out that for centuries we have been misled by simplified versions, hiding the true wisdom and level of development of those who lived before us. We studied a distorted history, perceiving ancestors as naive storytellers, whereas they possessed a deep understanding of cosmic processes. And if they knew so much about celestial mechanics that they could encrypt it in simple images, a logical question arises. Was their knowledge limited only to the movement of planets? Or did they know something more about those who might inhabit these halls? After all, if the ancients looked so carefully into the abyss, perhaps they knew the answer to the most frightening question of modern times. Are we truly alone in this infinity? The idea that somewhere out there, in the infinite blackness, there is someone else, has excited the human imagination for centuries. From the first science fiction novels to serious scientific missions searching for exoplanets, We are not let go by the hope, or perhaps the fear, of discovering brothers in reason. However, the more carefully we peer into the starry abyss, the louder its deafening silence sounds. This phenomenon in the scientific community has been named the Fermi paradox, which is formulated painfully simply. If the universe is so unimaginably huge, if it is teeming with billions of stars and likely trillions of planets, then where is everybody? Why, over decades of listening to the radio ether, have we not caught a single signal, a single greeting, a single technical noise? The most disturbing explanation for this paradox may not be that we are alone, but rather lies in our own limitations. Humanity, in its inherent arrogance, looks for life in its own image and likeness. When astronomers scan the sky, they are looking for a second Earth, a planet with liquid water, a dense oxygen atmosphere, a magnetic field, and a mild climate. It seems to us that life is possible only in the protein form familiar to us. But who said that evolution throughout the universe must follow the same script? It is quite likely that we are simply incapable of recognizing other forms of matter's existence. What if intelligent life exists in the form of pure energy, not tied to physical shells? Or perhaps civilizations develop in other dimensions that intersect with our space, but remain invisible to our instruments. Even if we consider more mundane options, we might be mistaken in our choice of search location. We are used to thinking that life thrives on the surface, under the rays of a star. But it may well turn out that an open biosphere is a rare, whimsical anomaly, and the rule is hidden life. Imagine planets covered with kilometer-thick shells of ice, under which warm, dark oceans splash, heated by a hot core. Such an environment is an ideal incubator for bacteria and more complex organisms, reliably protected from cosmic radiation. Such worlds might exist even in our solar system, right under our noses. But possessing only modern technology, we simply cannot look under this icy crust. The problem of our perception is exacerbated by the fact that we have explored a negligibly small part of even our own planet. According to some estimates, science has described no more than 1/5 of all living species on Earth. The smaller the creature, the harder it is to find. We do not see microbes with the naked eye. They exist in parallel with us, in the same space, but without a microscope, they do not exist for us. Similarly, we might be blind to cosmic giants or nano-civilizations. In this abyss, one needs to try incredibly hard to find something alive, especially if our search tools are as primitive as a stone axe in the internet age. Perhaps we simply have not yet grown to the level to notice neighbors, or they intentionally avoid contact with such an immature species. However, looking at the history of humanity, a seditious thought arises. Maybe this silence of the universe is a blessing for us. Maybe we shouldn't find anyone. After all, our psyche is so unstable that even the ghost of an alien presence is capable of causing global chaos. History has already taught us a cruel lesson about what happens when people sincerely believe in an invasion from the outside. This social experiment, which happened by chance, clearly showed, to destroy the familiar world, real aliens are not needed at all. Just a voice from a radio receiver and human fear is enough. History knows a case that serves as a perfect illustration of how fragile our world is and how easy it is to manipulate the consciousness of millions using only the power of words and the authority of a source. This illustrative incident, which became a textbook example of the power of media, occurred in 1938. Back then, a young and ambitious director, Orson Welles, decided to adapt H.G. Wells' science fiction novel, The War of the Worlds, for radio. But he did this not in the format of a standard audiobook or theatrical production, but stylized everything as urgent news bulletins breaking into the broadcast of an entertainment music program. This artistic device worked with frightening efficiency, nearly provoking a real apocalypse in a single country. Shocking reports followed one another, escalating the atmosphere of hopelessness. First, astronomers burst into the ether, reporting strange flares on Mars and the movement of unidentified objects toward Earth. Following them, reporters from the scene entered the game. With a voice breaking from excitement, drowned out by the sounds of static and the screams of a crowd, the journalist described the fall of a giant meteorite in New Jersey. Listeners were painted a vivid picture of terrible machines emerging from the crater, heat rays incinerating all living things, and the police and army being powerless against the alien threat. In just 40 minutes, America plunged into chaos. Despite the fact that at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the broadcast, the announcer reminded everyone that this was just a radio play, hundreds of thousands, and according to some data, millions of people, believed in the reality of what was happening. Logic and critical thinking were instantly shut off by fear. People barricaded themselves in basements, wrapped their heads in wet towels trying to save themselves from non-existent poison gas, loaded weapons, and fled cities in panic, creating traffic jams for miles. The National Guard was even mobilized, and police phone lines were severed by calls for help. Americans didn't just hear the story, they physically felt the invasion, saw the glow of fires, and smelled the smoke, none of which actually existed. This case is significant not only as a historical curiosity, but also as a mirror of our reality today. It demonstrates the fundamental vulnerability of human perception. We tend to unconditionally believe what comes from official sources, whether it is a radio receiver in the last century or a news feed on a smartphone today. The boundary between reality and fiction exists only in our heads, and this boundary is very easy to erase. People believed in Martians then with the same ease that they believe in political myths or scientific dogmas today, without demanding proof. We build our picture of the world based on information provided to us, and we rarely think about who exactly writes the script for this play. If a whole nation can be made to believe in an alien attack in half an hour, then what prevents humanity from being instilled with certain ideas about the shape of the Earth, the structure of space, or our place in the universe over centuries? The truth is often uncomfortable, while a familiar lie is comfortable and safe. If you are ready to look behind the scenes of this global production and learn what is not written in textbooks, subscribe to the channel. But remember, the path to knowledge is a one-way street, and once you know the truth, returning to a peaceful sleep in illusions will be impossible. The denouement is just around the corner.